Alright guys, welcome back. GM Light here. I know it's been a while. I've been, just busy, but I want to get back into posting, doing more, talking more about horror. There's a lot to talk about, especially with October next month. And there was just a tweet that really caught my eye and I wanted to talk about, and was honestly kind of surprising to me that it blew up a bit. So I guess Art the Clown's been added as some kind of skin, some kind of horror antagonist to a horror-centric Black Ops edition level. I don't play a lot of video games, so I don't exactly know what the deal is, but that's the basic gist. And there was a tweet that actually kind of got pretty big, more big than I would have expected, that said, "This industry plant horror icon," in reaction to Art the Clown being featured in Call of Duty. And I just thought it was so odd. It got like 40k likes, which I'm very surprised about. I don't know if these are people that just aren't kind of in the horror community, because this just couldn't be further from the truth. I think it's such a weird take, honestly. If Art the Clown was an industry plant, this would be the longest con that I've ever seen as someone who's a horror industry plant. Generally, when something like this happens, the popularity of a character, it's usually the first movie comes out, it's instant. Nightmare on Elm Street was a hit. Freddy became an instant classic. Saw became an instant classic, so did Jigsaw. All these characters usually just have that right out the gate, hot out the gate popularity. But the thing with Art the Clown, though, is that that's further from the truth. Art the Clown has existed for over 10 years at this point, and it wasn't until like 2 years ago when Terrifier 2 came out that he actually reached levels of popularity that he previously didn't have, and he rightfully deserved. A lot of trials and tribulations went into Art the Clown becoming kind of the household name that he is now. Part of it is that what first came was the short horror movie Terrifier, The Ninth Circle, All Hallows Eve came out, where Art is a prominent figure but not exactly the main point of the movie. Terrifier came out, became kind of a cult fixation among horror communities, but was never actually really a huge movie. It wasn't a thing that anyone I'd ever met really knew it. It was more of a movie that I would show to other people, and then they would be like, "Shit, that was really good. I really liked that, actually." And then Terrifier 2 came out, the reports of people needing vomit bags, stuff like that. The press about it blew up, and just Art became a very big thing. He became very popular, well known. And the idea of him being an industry horror plant or whatever, just so dumb to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like I said, this would be the biggest long game that anybody would ever play with a horror icon. Wouldn't make any sense, honestly, from any kind of business standpoint. I don't think he was picked up in any way. It was just he eventually grew an audience, grew a cult audience, and then eventually when Terrifier 2 came out, it was extremely popular, profitable, and it was a great movie in my opinion. It just ended up blowing up. I think part of it is that Terrifier 2 just was kind of the step above the other movies. All Hallows Eve is a great proof of concept with the character. Terrifier also kind of furthers that, but also shows the spotlight on him for the whole movie. What I really like about Terrifier 2 is that it almost feels like a mix of a comic booky horror movie mixed with an 80s slasher film. So that's the thing, is like it brings that mythology, the lore. It feels very comic bookish, but it's also, that point with the horror icon aspect of it brings them together. That's what I love so much about it. I think that resonated with a lot of people. I think that some of the nastiness of Terrifier 2 just people found so interesting. There was even a report that they wanted to reboot Terrifier, make it a little bit less rough-edged, and Damien Leone said no, and I'm glad that he said no, because I think that all the charm of this character in these movies is that they're lower budget. Terrifier 2 is crowdfunded. It's not like these are just these big things, big blockbusters, anything like that. I don't think there's anything fabricated about his popularity. If anything, because he's so indie and was so, it's cringe to say, but underground for a while, it's almost like that is the proof that no, this was not at all some kind of plant. If anything, I feel like there's so many other horror franchises that you could argue that about. I would probably argue that about some of the Conjuring spin-offs. Those feel like horror plant, corporately mandated things. But the Terrifier movies, they feel very creatively driven. And the popularity of the character just feels very organic and just authentic. I don't believe at all for a second that this is the thing that the studios would push, especially when it's just generally, I'm gonna say it, but these movies can be incredibly off-putting to a mainstream audience. I think that's some of what drew in the mainstream audience, is that they're so extreme, so violent, so kind of gross. But at the same time, I just don't see any studio pushing, promoting this, especially when Damien's mentioned they tried to get him on board with it and water it down so that they could market it better. Then it would just lose any of its identity. Then it wouldn't be Terrifier anymore. But because it's retained that, because it's just allowed itself to be this unadulterated, pure visioned R-rated thing, it's kept the entire runtime. Terrifier 2 was like 2.5 hours. I've never seen a slasher movie do that like that. All these things coming together just, I think, show that this notion's just kind of ridiculous. Especially too when you look at All Hallows Eve to Terrifier 2. I've said this before, but it seems like each movie is a stepping stone. It gets better. They improve every time. They tweak, fix aspects of the last movie, bring it forward to the next one, and each time they get better. And I have no doubt that, that's probably going to be what goes on with Terrifier 3. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you think. I don't think it has any basis in truth, but do you think that Art the Clown is a media plant? I'd love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.